What's going on, everybody? Welcome in Fantasy Alarm DFS Watch List live stream. I'm Howard Bender. With me here, John and Pemba, wearing the ugliest shirt you could ever possibly see.
Winners. We're back in first place in the division, where we belong, where we're going to stay.
Oh, John, I'm looking here. We were just talking before we even started. And let's just get the disgust out of the way of how nasty like our main slate looks right now. We were talking about the fact that the tight end position is gone. No Gronk, no Kelsey, no Ertz, who plays Thursday night. We're going to take away Jimmy Graham and George Kittle. They're on Monday night. That's what, 5 of the best tight ends right now.
Evan Ingram, he's limited in practice. I don't think he was going to play this week either, but I mean, he's another Thursday casualty as well. So, you're really looking at the majority of the top tight ends just gone. And, this is, a position which is pretty hard to find a productive one anyways. So, I don't know. Kyle Rudolph, the top tight end this week, maybe?
Kyle Rudolph is probably the top 10. All right, so I put the watch list together. We'll go position by position because but here's this is the other thing that I was talking about, and I was talking about this on air, on the show on Sirius, and I'm curious as to your thoughts. It's like I do the watch list. I'm starting to look at which pass defenses are soft, which run defenses are soft. I start looking at the matchups, the individual matchups for the cornerbacks and the wide receivers, and who we're going to get there, but as much work as prelim work as you're doing here, it just still seems that the bulk of what you need done is on Saturdays and Sundays when the news comes through.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of said to you the other day, up until Saturday, Sunday, you can only, prepare with the information that you have at hand. Like we said, we talked about a little bit off air. We spent all week targeting Emmanuel Sanders, thinking he's getting Buster Screen. Injury happened. Next thing you know, the whole cornerback wide receiver matchups flip, and Sanders didn't do anything, and it was Demaryius Thomas had the big game. So, yeah, I mean, those are the things you have to start taking into account. I don't know, you can't predict injuries, but yeah, I mean, I still don't think Emmanuel Sanders was the wrong play. 9 times out of 10, that matchup's going to stay the way we thought, and he's going to have a big game. Fortunately, that wasn't the case this week.
Right. Well, again, it's about the process and what you're doing. So when we're looking at it this week, obviously, this is something that we have to turn our attention to. You got the Jets against the Colts. So who's the receiver who's going to be covered by Buster Screen? That's the receiver who you want.
Yeah.
Basically coming through. So if it's if Screen stays on as the slot corner, well, then great, because that means you want all in on Chester Rogers. If he gets pivoted to the outside because no Trumaine Johnson, then you got to look over at Ryan Grant. So, again, it's one of those things that you guys need to track. And I don't mean to beat the dead horse of this is why you don't ask start-sit questions on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. You look ahead and you ask these questions on Saturday when you know that you've got basically the most updated injury information possible over there. But nevertheless, DFS watch list, what we do is we break down certain things. We look at the matchups on paper and see if we can make heads or tails of it. I'd like to go position by position, but I'm going to just start off flat out here saying, John, I need you to talk me off the ledge, dude. I'm on the Bills. I'm on the Bills.
You might be the only person I've ever heard say I'm on the Bills, except maybe like Chris Berman 15 years ago, when he was always... nobody circles the wagon is his favorite catch line, right? I mean, I don't see it. I mean, what about their offense, appeals to you, other than the price point?
Well,
they're so cheap that
yes.
But cheap doesn't always mean good value.
No.
Just like we say there's good chalk and bad chalk, there's good chalk and there's there's good value and there's bad value. I don't see the good value in playing in the Buffalo Bills, so maybe you're looking at it differently than I am.
I might be. I mean, listen, bottom line for me is I look at this Houston defense and I hate it. I really hate it. Like, I don't care. They've got Clowney, they've got Watt, they've got Merciless. And they've had the three of those guys the entire season, and yet the defense still looks like garbage. The secondary is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. So, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of sitting here looking at the Bills going up against them, and I'm thinking Josh Allen, who, again, you pointed this out as we were getting ready to start this whole thing, has the potential of running it in. He's done it now a couple of times. So that definitely adds to it. I love it. When a young quarterback leans on his tight end a little bit more. Houston, dead last in covering the tight end. Horrible. A veteran like Charles Clay knows how to get open when he's facing a defense that struggles to cover the tight end. So listen, I don't love the Bills, but for the same token, when we were using Josh Rosen and matching him up with Ricky Seals-Jones, I'm kind of looking over here at Josh Allen and Charles Clay. I'm not going nuts, and I'm not stacking them. I'm not using Kelvin Benjamin. I'm not using Zay Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he threw for 82 yards last week.
82? That's a good day.
It's like, I don't know. I mean, to your point, Houston has given up some big games to teams that have competent passing attacks. Tom Brady threw for 3 touchdowns. Andrew Luck threw for 4 touchdowns. Eli Manning, I quote-unquote competent, whatever. But he threw for 2 touchdowns and 300 yards. But then you look at the other games, Tennessee, only 117 yards because Blaine Gabbert isn't a quarterback. Jim Bodo won't like to hear this, but what's Dak Prescott really done? He only threw for 200 yards and a score last week against them. So, good quarterbacks can tear apart this Texans defense. Josh Allen's not even really classified as a bad quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think he's – he should be a backup. He should be behind somebody, but the Bills are the Bills. So
he was behind somebody. He's far superior to Nathan Peterman.
Right, which speaks volumes about that quarterback situation. They should have like how bad is Adrian McCarron that he couldn't stay on this roster? I don't know. You know what?
I think McCarron's got some other problems. I think McCarron's got some other issues that we're not hearing about. Because it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Cincinnati is all of a sudden Cincinnati turns around. They're like, no, we can get rid of him. After years of no, he's our guy. He's our guy. He's our future.
Can you imagine if the Browns knew how to work a fax machine? They would have given up 2 first-round picks for him last year. They fell into Baker Mayfield because they wanted to pick.
They wanted McCarron. I'm telling you.
McCarron so bad. I don't know. So, we talked about in the past weeks, when guys like Rosen and Beathard were at the same price point as Allen, and we both consider them to be decent value plays at their position. I still like Beathard. I think he's, again, I don't think he's as bad as everybody was, thought he was based off last year's performance. He's kind of proven that to be true. Josh Allen's a bad quarterback right now. To me, it's just lighting your money on fire if you throw him in a lineup. I hope for your sake, because, if you're going to play him this week, I'm wrong, but, I can't.
I'm going to have one just disgusting, miserable, trashy. Because, listen, if you put Josh Allen and Charles Clay in there, I mean, come on. Julio Jones is fully in play. Todd Gurley is fully in play. I could probably get Todd Gurley and I don't know, take your pick, Zeke Elliott, Melvin Gordon, somebody like that. I don't know. Listen, I'm just trying to have a little fun, kid.
If Buffalo's defense can turn the ball over against Houston and give him short field like they did against Minnesota, and he's able to then work within 30 yards of the goal line, because that's about as far as the drives he's capable of producing, then sure. I'll give him.
Yeah.
He ran for 2 touchdowns that game, threw for another. He had 27 fantasy points against the.
Could you imagine getting that result for $4,700?
He'll be 0.1% owned. It'll be Howard Benner.
It will. It was just one guy.
Yeah.
That's it. Just give me those checks for $1 million there. Thank you very much, FanDuel. Thank you very much, DraftKings.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
talk about some real quarterbacks. Can we talk about some real quarterbacks?
We can. Chalkiest quarterback, number 1 quarterback this week. Who is it?
It's going to be Matt Ryan.
Has to be Matt Ryan. And I understand people bringing up that Tampa Bay's coming off a bye week. They've had the 2 weeks to prepare.
they didn't sign anybody in those 2 weeks. They didn't do anything to improve their defense over those 2 weeks. I don't think they're going to be able to coach them up to defend Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Austin Hooper, Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman, Ito Smith. They're not going to stop any of those guys. So, and Matt Ryan's going to be throwing. So, yeah, I think Matt Ryan's going to be the chalkiest guy for good reason. I know he kind of let us down last week, but I questioned about his ability to really go on the road and play outside the dome anyways. He's back home in the dome. Yeah, this should just be a lot of points both ways, I'm expecting, in this game, which we love. So, Matt Ryan, chalky number 1 quarterback for sure.
Absolutely. I actually broke down his numbers when we were talking about the home road splits. He's averaging 268 with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, 2 road games, averaging 355 yards with a 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio just in 3 games over here. So definitely something to consider. What about Winston on the other side of that?
Love it. I haven't listed the QB coach as my top mid-price option. As I joke about the bye week and their defense not being able to improve, I actually think the bye week and the extra week off can benefit Winston. He's now had 2 weeks technically really to practice, with the first team offense. When he was able to come off suspension, Ryan Fitzpatrick was still the starter there. So he was getting the majority of the reps with that first team. He came in relief of Fitzpatrick against the Bears, threw 2 interceptions, but still completed 80% of his passes. So, I mean, that's a good number. I'm sure, that game was a blowout, so maybe he was throwing against a soft Bears defense, but, I still think there's some upside there. And then if you're sort of a believer in, past statistics, Winston's had a ton of success against the Falcons. 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 5 games, completing almost 67% of his passes. So, and again, I like them being in a dome. I think that plays to the speed of the Tampa Bay wide receivers there. So, yeah, I think Winston's in a really great spot at a really good price on both sites.
Very good price on both sites. All right. So we obviously both guys are going to be highly owned. We know that. Let's talk about who do you think has the potential of breaking out that isn't exactly going to be a super high owned guy. I was hoping it was Derek Carr last week. Certainly was not the case.
So, I mean, obviously,
where are you looking?
Hopefully, you mentioned Josh Allen. I actually like Deshaun Watson on the other side. I know he's currently I think he's questionable. He's banged up a little bit, but I saw a report they anticipate him to play. This is Houston doesn't have a running game. I know Lamar Miller is going to play this week, but even then they don't really run the football at all. And all the stats come from Deshaun Watson. I think it's only been 1 game this year where he's thrown under 300 yards. He's got all of his receivers there. Will Fuller's currently healthy. DeAndre Hopkins, is in video game mode again right now. And, Kiki Kute, right, out of nowhere, starting to form a role in that offense too. So, Buffalo, for as good a defense as they've recently played, if you look at the past 3 games, they've really been able to hold teams to, low point totals. But, I think Watson's just going to have to throw it. They're at home. I like that. So give me some Deshaun Watson sort of as a contrarian play, a little pivot play off of Matt Ryan.
All right. Now, you've got Andy Dalton in the QB coach going up against the Steelers. It's definitely a little chalky as far as that goes. But I'm just hearing a lot of people talking about not believing in Andy Dalton. Is it just recency bias? Not recency bias, but is it just, what he's done over the past couple of years? Just a full bias. Everybody hates gingers.
Yeah, I mean,
never trust a ginger quarterback.
As you and I have both brought up, since he's been under this new offensive coordinator, the name's escaping me. I'm sure you probably have it under your
Bill
head.
Lazor.
Bill Lazor. That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't say it. He's had a lot of success in that offense, so it's hard to look at what he's done and kind of go against him. I know last week, obviously, against Miami was a disappointing game for him, but this is still, I think, a good matchup against Pittsburgh, who plays differently on the road than they do at home. I know divisional matchups, these games typically play closer, maybe more lower scoring, but, I haven't seen any reason to think that Pittsburgh can defend an A.J. Green or Tyler Boyd. And Joe Mixon looked really good coming back from the injury. And all those comments about him being quote-unquote limited, that wasn't true. So he came out and performed up to the standard. So I think all these guys are in play, and I like Dalton. And like I said, if you're looking at the price points, it's going to be difficult for me to think that Dalton really is considered chalk because most people will just pay the few extra bucks, I think, to Ryan if you're going to be spending up this week. So I think you're going to get a guy like Dalton in a lower ownership. Again, his ceiling isn't going to be as high, I don't think, as a Ryan given the matchups, but certainly capable because Pittsburgh's defense has been pretty bad. Their allowing was the 4th most passing yards and the most passing touchdowns allowed this season.
So would you say that the reason the Falcons failed then had nothing to do with the Steelers defense? It had everything to do with the Falcons just not having a rhythm playing outside the dome?
Yeah, I think you see that a lot with dome teams, and it's kind of been always the knock on Drew Brees when he's outside of New Orleans, is the fact that, his numbers dip a little. I kind of see the same thing happen there with Atlanta. You always used to see with Peyton Manning, for as great as he was, when you took him outside the dome, the numbers dipped a little bit. I think you see it a little bit with Luck too. So, I think this is a good spot for that team and that defense. So,
who's the trap play? Who's the guy? Who's the quarterback that you look at? You say, you know what? The matchup looks good. A lot of people like him. He's got good weapons. He's gonna screw people over.
Don't
say Josh Allen. You say Josh Allen, you're fired.
I kind of feel that way a little bit about Goff.
Okay.
Because he has the weapons, but they're also injured, a little banged up. You see that Cooks is expected to play. I know he's been dealing with, I think he has a concussion, and Cooper Kupp as well. But the matchup against Denver, who's just got torched, recently, last week against the Jets of all teams. They don't have a good defense either. So I think a lot of people will look at the Rams and all the points they're putting up. But I think a lot of that's going to come from Gurley this week. And I kind of felt that Goff was a little bit of a trap play last week. Still put up the 19 points, fantasy points, which is fine. But only the 1 touchdown. He didn't light it up like he did against Minnesota, like he did against the Chargers. So for me, I think Goff's a little bit of a trap play this week.
Right on. All right, let's move it over to the running back position. Tom Vecchio does the running backs coach over here at fantasyalarm.com. We both have Todd Gurley atop our lists. And then, of course, a couple other names here that Tom likes. Joe Mixon is here. James Conner on the other side of that game as well. Talk to me about this Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game here. I mean, do you see both defenses getting lit up like we've seen with – I mean, Cincinnati's, went back and forth with Atlanta. Yeah. Pittsburgh's gone back and forth with Kansas City.
I mean, it's certainly, I think it's a possibility. The Bengals defense has had its moments at times this year, but largely, they've been giving up a lot of points as well. So, it's really questionable as to, how Big Ben's going to play. Usually Big Ben doesn't play well on the road. That's been the case again. He's been getting older, not because he doesn't have the weapons. Like Antonio Brown's still there, and Juju Smith-Schuster, and I said James Conner had a huge game. And it's not like he goes from dome to outside. He plays outside anyways. The weather in Cincinnati is pretty similar to what it's going to be like typically he plays in Pittsburgh. So this could just be a divisional matchup. But again, we're looking at a Bengals team that put up 22 fantasy points last week against Miami. I know the point spread in this game is pretty high. But I don't love Big Ben in the passing game. Maybe Connor is a little bit more appealing to me just because of how he doesn't necessarily need to rely on Roethlisberger for his own points.
Okay, I can dig that. Now you look a little further, lower tier here. He starts talking Javorius Allen. Are we at that point here, John? 12 DK points per game right now for 4 out of 5 games here for Buck Allen? Are we at that point here where we're just looking at pass catching running backs who are going to end up being a low cost option?
I think you have to, at least in full point PPR leagues. I mean, he caught 6 of 8 targets last week. He's been very involved. He's still not really running the ball a lot. Only 1 game this season has he had more than 10 touches, and he only had 10 in that game. So Tennessee's got a good defense too, and they're at home. So I don't really like Baltimore this week. So I don't know if I'd go Javorius Allen. I think if I'm on DraftKings, like why not spend a little bit and go with like a Mike Davis, who seemingly him and Carson are fully in the running back share. But if they're going to give 20 carries to both, which we both talked about like they should, I think Davis is kind of a similar price point. It's a guy worth looking at. And then I like Hines too. I think he proved himself. A pretty valuable player last week against New England. Against the Jets this week, they probably should use him just as much as they did before. He carried 15 times for 45 yards. Not a great average there, but you're getting the extra 4.5 points if he's going to at least run the ball like he did. But 7 catches for 45 yards too. It's a big game for him, so I kind of like him at that sort of similar price point as well.
You like Mike Davis over Chris Carson?
Didn't Carson get more carries last week? Was that how the share ended up breaking down? 19.
Yeah, but so here's the thing: Carson more of a pass catcher than Mike Davis is. However, Mike Davis then he also starts seeing some of the goal line work.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a trade-off there.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Carson had 100 yards last week. Davis had 12 for 68 in the score, like you said. They're both really cheap. It's not a
300,
good strategy.
300 off.
Yeah, it's not a good strategy to play both running backs, but I mean, if they're going to get the 15 carries combined average each, I mean, they both could be value plays this week. I don't know how you feel about that against Oakland.
I think they're both interesting value plays. I don't know if I necessarily want to start both of them. I just have the problem with the London game. Like, I'll take one, but I won't do both.
I think I would go Carson over Davis if I had to pick one. But yeah, Davis coming out of nowhere really to start getting pretty big workload in those end zone carries is a little haunting there on some of that value. If we want to go back up to the mid tier a little bit, what's your feelings on Jordan Howard this week? Obviously, week 4 was just an absolute disaster. I blame a lot of that on the fact that they just scored too quickly, I'll say, on Tampa Bay. But then he didn't really get the garbage yards either. They just never really used them. Only 11 carries for 25 yards. I was very high on him coming into this year. I expect, the way Matt Nagy talked about him in the offseason was that Howard was going to be this 3-down workhorse for them. And really haven't seen it. This is a good spot for him against Miami. If you look at sort of the defensive versus position, Miami allowing the 4th most fantasy points to running backs this year. What's your take on Jordan Howard? Can we trust him this week?
I don't know if we can trust him. Here's the thing. It's funny that you bring this up. I wrote my love letter on the Alarm Show today to Matt Nagy. And I was like, listen, okay, you've got what you wanted right before the break. You got Mitch Trubisky's breakout game. His confidence is there. He's got some swagger. You're going to Miami for your first game back from the bye. Miami's got a decent pass defense. It's not great. It's not the be-all, end-all. But you're going to have Xavier Howard probably covering Allen Robinson. And then the other fringe receivers, we're just going to kind of see what happens. The run defense for Miami is not good. They're soft in the middle. If they pound the rock, if they use Jordan Howard over and over again, they can really establish this run, open things up for Trubisky. So that's the way I see it. I'm hoping Matt Nagy sees it in a similar fashion here. But, again, that's the problem there, is that can you trust it with DFS based on what you think the coaches should do? Because last week, everybody and their grandmother was all in on Aaron Jones, me included. Yeah. And Mike McCarthy was like, F you. I don't think this kid can pass block. And from completely from seeing an increase in snap counts to the decrease in snap counts for Jamal Williams, boom, Mike McCarthy screws Aaron Jones, and he went from $4,300 to being worth about 10.
Yeah. I mean, the yards per carry were there with Jones. I think we both kind of were talking about it in the middle of that game. It's like, what's he talking about? But again, this is another stance where I think, he's a victim of the fact that they were down 24-0 at halftime, and they needed to throw all those times to come back in that game. And he said, if he's not a good pass blocker, at least we kind of know that now, right? We can't be so optimistic about Aaron Jones. And I think his ownership numbers are going to start dipping in week to week, and maybe throw him in a couple lineups as the flex. But if the Packers are going to sort of struggle a little bit this year for whatever reason, like they seemingly have, they need to rely on Rodgers from throwing to keep him in the game or throwing to have him come back, then we know that Aaron Jones isn't going to see the field, and that's going to hurt his value. So, last week, everybody was really optimistic on him. He was on everybody's articles, everybody on the radio. Everybody was in on Aaron Jones. And he 7 carries for 40 yards? Just wasn't there for us. So, I don't know. What's your maybe this guy will be on the dartboard this week. We'll have to obviously wait and see. But Ronald Jones, what do you think about him? $3,900 on DraftKings.
He's on the watch list already, actually. Again, that's where we're going to have to wait and see what the practice reports look like here. Clearly, Peyton Barber has not earned the right to be the number one running back on that team. After 3 weeks of being inactive, we saw Jones not only active, but he got 10 carries.
10 carries for a robust 29 yards.
Yeah, you got to love that 2.9 yards per carry average. Don't
forget his one catch for -1 yards.
Yeah. So you're not really stating much of a case here for Ronald Jones, other than the fact that he's going up against Atlanta, and Atlanta sucks on defense.
That's really it. That's the only appeal I have for Ronald Jones, because this is a guy that more for I know this is a DFS, but why we don't draft early in seasonal leagues was the fact that Ronald Jones was a 4th-round pick for anybody who drafted before the preseason started. So I want to believe that there's talent here. They obviously used a high draft pick to draft him to their team. Somewhere along the line, something fell off for this kid. Either he just wasn't prepared to be in the league or what. But this is sort of like a now or never thing, I think, for Tampa. If he has the upside, they have to get him in the offense. I like that they gave him the 10 carries. They at least gave him a shot. So hopefully in this spot against Atlanta, who struggles to cover guys who can come out of the backfield and catch the football, as well, and Jones supposedly has that skill set. I love the price tag. $3,900 is pretty cheap, so I think he's going to make some of my lineups this week, and I think there's some upside there.
Would you rather use Ronald Jones as your running back or Charles Clay as your tight end?
Ronald Jones is my running back.
Would you rather use Ronald Jones as your running back or Kelvin Benjamin as a wide receiver?
I think Ronald Jones still.
Would you rather use Ronald Jones as a running back or Josh Allen as a quarterback?
They might score the same amount of points. Probably. I still think I'm going to go with the running back there. If all the practice reports come out and they're like Ronald Jones is going to be the leading back heading into Week 6 against Atlanta, I think I would take him over all the Buffalo Bills.
All right, there you go. John and Pemba all in on Ronald Jones.
He's my favorite player. I'm now a Ronald Jones guy.
You should ditch the New England jersey, ditch the New England shirt, get yourself a Ronald Jones Bucks jersey. Yeah. I think that's definitely what you're in need of there, 100%.
They have a good logo, so I'll take it.
All right, let me jump into a couple. We've got a couple of questions going on here right now. Now, granted, this is supposed to be a DFS live stream, but I'm willing to throw the bone here and help some seasonal people. We got Yoshi Mike. He's got Corey Clement, Nyheim Hines, or Adrian Peterson. One of those running backs there, John. What do you think?
Clement, Hines, Peterson, and Crowell.
Yeah.
Probably Clement, because he practiced in full. Supposed to be fully healthy this week, so I like him better than Smallwood in terms of running the football, and he can catch the football. So I think he should hop, I would assume, into the number one back role this week in the team. I know they're facing the Giants on Thursday night, and usually those games have been, actually this year those games have actually been pretty good, but who knows? I guess this week I still think I'd go with Clement. I can't trust Corral to run for 200 yards. Peterson got hurt last week, so I'm kind of iffy on him. I guess if it's a PPR league, Hines has some value to me, but I'd probably go Clement.
Yeah, all right. John Barkley's in a standard league, needs 2 wide receivers and possibly 1 flex if Adrian Peterson should be benched, which he should be. So he needs 2 wide receivers and a flex here. You got pen and paper there, John? You might want to write these down. All right, use your noggin. Here it comes. You ready?
Yeah, hold on.
John's got it right.
Ready.
Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Allen Robinson, Tyler Lockett, Deshaun Jackson, Josh Gordon. Give me 3 of those names, baby.
I'm going to go Ridley, Jackson, and Gordon.
Ridley, Jackson, and Gordon.
Yeah, get the 3 guys in the 2 highest total games.
Are we not worried that Jameis Winston's just going to force feed targets Mike Evans' way and Deshaun Jackson's going to fall to the wayside?
I think that Deshaun Jackson should probably get like 4 or 5 targets like he normally gets, but those targets for him turn into 120 yards and a touchdown or two most of the time. So, I'm thinking big play upside in this matchup against Atlanta. Again, they're on the dome. They're in the dome. Fast track. Deshaun Jackson, the speedster. We saw him put up huge numbers at times with Fitzpatrick. So, I know last year wasn't a great year for him with Winston as a quarterback, but I still like it. I think Godwin's an interesting. Again, moving a little bit back to DFS. I think Godwin could be an interesting sort of play. I like the third receivers in that game with Sanu and Godwin. I think they can both maybe go a little bit overlooked, but they have almost as much upside, it seems like, over the last few weeks. So obviously week 4 aside for Godwin, but Sanu, it's been really good. Everybody's talking about Calvin Ridley because of those 3 touchdowns a few weeks ago, and Julio's Julio, but I mean, look at the targets, look at the catches and the production for Sanu. He's right there with them, really.
All right, here we go over to Periscope. Alex Collins, Josh Adams, or Devonta Freeman?
Freeman.
Yeah, that makes. I'm even sorry I asked that. Trubisky or Eli this week?
Probably. If the Giants home or away this week, I should know this, but I don't.
The Giants are at home this week.
I'll go Eli. Give me Beckham and Shepard there.
Okay. I can dig that. Here you go. I love this one. Lamar Miller, Alfred Blue, or Kyle Juszczyk. Like, how bad of a position do you need to be in that you're asking about Miller, Blue, or Juszczyk? And it's at Papoose, who's got like the little sad face next to it too.
How bad is your team and how deep is your league? Kyle Juszczyk is an option.
He's a viable option, apparently.
Yeah, is he viable? No. Lamar Miller. I mean, from what I read and all the reports coming up today, he's going to play. He's healthy. If that's the case, he's the lead running back in that situation.
So gross.
Not good.
So
good
gross.
luck. Good luck to you. And
right. Ugh. All right. Guys, just want to say hi to our sponsors real quick here. Fantasy Factor. Guys, if you want the entire NBA season for free on Fantasy Alarm, and that is all sorts of deliciousness from this man here, John and James Grande, who are going to be crushing our NBA DFS content. Justin Fensterman handles the seasonal end there. If you want the entire NBA season for free this year, well, Fantasy Factor will pay for the season for you. Go to fantasyalarm.com/FFNBA for all the details. Fantasy Factor has only single entry contests. It's a fun community. And if you make your first deposit, they'll give you $5 just to play with immediately, plus the entire NBA season from Fantasy Alarm for free, which is like a $200 value. We've integrated all of their scoring and salaries into our tools, including our lineup generator. So super easy to play, super easy to win. Again, fantasyalarm.com/FFNBA. That's fantasyalarm.com/FFNBA. Now, John, let's get back to the DFS watch here. Let's talk wide receivers. Yeah, because, listen, this is the position here, the wide receiver spot. This is where, to me, it's all about paying up this week. And, I have guys like Julio Jones and Mike Evans in the DFS watch list. Colby Conway, who does the wide receiver coach. Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen. I won't say DeAndre Hopkins because I don't think there's ever been a wide receiver coach where he hasn't recommended DeAndre Hopkins. Colby and Notorious Texans.
I was gonna say there's no allegiance bias there, is there?
No. It's like you doing a quarterback coach without Tom Brady.
I haven't been able to play him because the Patriots are too good. They put him on all the non-main slates, so there's nothing but primetime games. The Patriots play at 8 o'clock in 6 of their whatever games this season. It's ridiculous. So that's my rant on primetime games.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me about wide receivers. Are you paying up? I'm definitely paying up for some.
So I definitely think you have to pay up. I do have one potential post-hype sleeper that I like this week, and maybe he won't really be as sleepy as I think. But with Rashard Higgins being already ruled out for this week, Antonio Callaway, who everybody was all high on a few weeks back, didn't do anything, hasn't really done much. $4,000 against the Chargers, who don't play good on the road. They don't travel well. Their defense isn't great. You got to figure that Casey Hayward is, not Casey Hayward. Is it Casey Hayward? The cornerback there for San Diego that just shut down Amari Cooper last week.
Yeah, Casey Hayward.
Okay,
They play in Los Angeles, John, not
True.
San Diego.
My bad. Los Angeles. They don't have a home, right? So, so I think he's going to be on Jarvis Landry probably. So if that's the case, yeah, I think Antonio Callaway could be a sneaky little post-hype play here. 3 catches on 5 targets against a tough Baltimore defense last week. But before that, he had 9 targets and 11 targets against the Raiders and Jets. He wasn't really able to convert them, like I said, didn't really blow up like people thought. But Baker Mayfield was looking at him, and if Higgins, who was one of his favorite targets, is out, I think Callaway is an interesting value option here.
It's kind of funny. I actually just picked up Callaway for that very same reason in a seasonal league for me. Again, as far as another low-cost option who we're definitely looking at it's a matter of it's either Chester Rogers or it's Ryan Grant. It's one of those guys, whoever's going to be covered by Buster Screen, that's who you want. And if you just need proof, listen, I said this last week about Emmanuel Sanders. You see what happened to Dede Westbrook. And Dede Westbrook had a great breakout game 2 weeks ago. And everybody was loving on Dede Westbrook. And they were like, oh, my God, I got to get some Dede Westbrook into my lineup here. Well, the following week, Dede Westbrook didn't do squat. Who did? The guy who was being covered by Buster Screen, which was Demaryius Thomas, who got it was a late pivot there. So looking at that Jets Indianapolis game, guys, I'm telling you, it's either going to be Chester Rogers or Ryan Grant. If Screen is in the slot, you want Chester Rogers. If he's on the outside, you want Ryan Grant.
Yeah, I'm a Chester Rogers guy. 11 targets each of the last 2 games. So.
Yeah. No, he only dropped 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you play New England.
Is it?
No.
Okay. All right. Now you can start talking about Cam Meredith being a better option than Traquan Smith.
I stand by that. I don't care that he got more fantasy points. I still think Cam Meredith.
We were talking about one game. One game. I wasn't talking about the future.
Yeah, wow.
Now we're just airing. This is it. This is our dirty laundry.
You're bringing our private chats out on the line.
John and I are just. That's it. Everything's exposed. Everything is in play in Pemba. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's fine. You won the battle. I'll take the war. That's fine.
All right, let's talk about some other wide receivers, though, who we like, who we don't like. Any interest in, I don't know, where do you want to go? You want to go expensive? You want to go cheap?
All right, I got one more cheap guy I'm going to talk about just because I've mentioned him the last couple of weeks, but Martavis Bryant, if he's going to catch a football, it's going to be for like 50 or so yards. He had 3 catches for 90 yards last week. They're still going to chuck it up to him. The upside is just there. If you play on that FanDuel contest where you have the longest score, you get a portion of the prize. Well, Martavis Bryant is one of the best options for that, right? Like he could catch a 90-something yard touchdown on a heave downfield by Derek Carr. So, I think Martavis Bryant's someone worth considering this week. And then I mentioned a little bit earlier, but Chris Godwin again. Aside from week 4 where nobody in that team did anything, he had touchdowns in weeks 1, 2, and 3. So this is a good spot for everybody in that Tampa offense. He's only $4,400. A lot of the focus, I think, from Atlanta is going to be on D-Jax and Evans. So, I think Godwin could be a sneaky little play there for cheap. But, yeah, if you want to talk top-tier guys, I still think like guys like A.J. Green, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, all those guys, they're all in play. It's boring to talk about them because, it's either a hot take if you say fade them, but if you say play them, it's like, well, duh. So, it's just, yeah.
Not so much a well, duh kind of thing right now because, listen, we could talk about Julio Jones's matchup all we want, whether it's going to be Brent Grimes or Vernon Hargreaves on him. You're still going to end up seeing the safety float his way. So whether or not you want to actually use him, is a different story. So, fading him is not always the worst thing in the world. It really just depends on who the receiver is. I mean, of course, the week that you end up fading him is the week that he goes for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it 2 weeks ago, right, when he had the 29 fantasy points or whatever. He was able to hook up with them, and again, that was at home. So, maybe they get back home. Again, this is bad defense, and no one can really stop, Julio. You swatting some flies over there?
I'm swatting some flies over here, dude. This is ridiculous. This is the peril of living next to a horse farm, dude.
Yeah.
It's a hay farm, and they board horses, and like all of a sudden, like my outdoor area is just like a massive fly zone here, and it's grossing me out. So let's get out of here soon. Let's talk tight ends real quick. Let's give our talk about the fact that there are none available.
What tight ends are we discussing?
Right? Like in the wastebasket. Charles Clay. He's the best.
Greg Olsen, not that I think you can risk playing him, but he's supposedly going to play this week. Was limited at practice. There's a lot of talk of him coming back. He has the upside that few on the slate do. And if you look on like all the defensive versus position matchups, it's all red at the top. All these teams cover the tight end well for one reason or another. I don't know if it's just teams are now getting faster linebackers or better coverage safeties or whatnot, but none of these teams really give up any points to the tight end. Austin Hooper has the best matchup against Tampa Bay. He had a huge game last week. 9 catches on 12 targets for 77 yards. A very low ownership there. A lot of people will probably be on him, though, because, again, lack of tight ends this week in the main slate and the matchup. Cameron Braid, I think, is another guy that's going to be very chalky.
Did you see that O.J. Howard is looking like he's trying to play this week now?
Yeah, but he has a sprained MCL. I think he's a decoy if he's active, right? They put him on the field because you have to think about him. But even then, even with Howard playing, Braid's caught touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. Braid and Jameis Winston have good chemistry together. I think the Braid could be a little interesting play. What do you think of CJ Uzomah? You just saw Hooper about points.
Yeah, listen, I like CJ Uzomah and the fact that he's the last tight end standing over there in Cincinnati. We were doing like a little comparison. Would you rather? And it was like CJ Uzomah or Nick Vannett. Because all the tight ends on both those teams are just dropping like flies. Well, not like these, but I like Uzomah. Believe it or not, I like Tyler Higbee, especially because you have to watch and see if Brandon Cooks is out or if Cooper Kupp is out. If both of them are out, well, then hell, that puts Gerald Everett into a much better spot as well. But if either one of these guys are out, all of a sudden I kind of like Higbee a little bit more this week. So that to me is that's one to watch. Like Uzomah and Hooper are probably the 2 guys who I'll use most often. But Clay and Higbee are 2 low-cost back-end options that if everything breaks right, I might be able to just kind of use them as a punt play.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with there. I know they're playing Jacksonville, but what do you think of Jeff Swain? I mean, he's
a hell of a nice guy. I'll tell you, man. He is a hell of a nice guy. I actually got a chance to interview him.
Nice. You play him, though.
I played him last week because I interviewed him, and he had a good game. So I just have to limit my Dallas Cowboys exposure because if word gets out that I'm playing Dallas Cowboys, then Bowden starts chiming in. He starts talking them up, and nobody needs that.
Does your Cowboys counter count when you discuss them as well, or is that just a gym thing?
No, that's just a gym thing.
Okay.
Just the gym thing. Guys, before we get out of here, I just want to give you a little shout out to MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is what you want to do. They've been in business for years. They got great reviews online. Mobile site, super easy. Go to fantasyalarm.com/MyBookie. Use the promo code ALARM, and MyBookie will match your deposit dollar for dollar. All right, fantasyalarm.com/MyBookie, promo code ALARM, dollar to dollar match. You play, you win, you get paid. Beautiful. Did you do that, John? Did you do your MyBookie account there? Set it up nicely with Fantasy Alarm? Get your match?
Not only have I done that, but I've also taken advantage of their Refer a Friend program. So I sign up, everybody else signs up, get referring friends. There's just a lot of free bets. It's great. It's a great system. So I'm a fan.
Nothing better than free bets. All right, John, any last words you got for today's DFS live streamers out there?
What did you think about those Red Sox last night?
Wow. Really? Like, that's how you want to end it? John. Et tu, John and Pemba? Et tu? You know, I've been nurturing you since you were a little sea monkey in this industry here. Just a little baby. Just doing notes for Roto Info. That's all you were doing.
A long time ago.
And now look at you. You're like here on the live stream. You're big. You're bad. Come on. You're leading our NBA DFS content. And now you're going to spit in my face?
Well, I'm still a little salty over the Cam Meredith dig, so.
Yeah, but see, they didn't know what you were talking about. They had no idea what I was talking about there.
Yeah. Well, I want them to know Red Sox.
You know what? Listen, man, I hope all of Boston falls into the harbor. Okay? And the entire city just goes under. How about that?
Good accent. I'll give you it.
All right. It's going to do it for us here on the Fantasy Alarm live stream. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, it's me and Brandon Marianne Lee. Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, it's me and Craig Mish doing the Wager Alarm live stream. For John and Pemba, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.